Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fourth episode of the Drive Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Jared Palla. I'm here, as always, with the second co-host, because that's how a podcast works. His name is Kyle Fry, and today, since we were unable to record a podcast episode last week, we're both getting settled back into school. It's college. So, because of that,
life.
exactly, because of that, we're going to be bringing you guys a little bit longer of an episode today. We have some stuff to talk about. We got some Sixers stuff to talk about. We have some Flyers stuff, Eagles stuff. Well, not necessarily Eagles specifically, but the NFL. We're going to be talking about the Super Bowl a little bit. Obviously, spring training's coming up. So, Kyle, would you like to tell them what we're going to be starting off today with?
Well, I think, just to get it out of the way, Dave Hakstol's a fucking idiot. Yeah. To put it lightly, the Flyers are an absolute shit show. I mean, they lost 3-1 yesterday to the Islanders. And when you lose to the Islanders, you really can't be happy about anything in life, because how the hell do you lose to the Islanders?
I haven't really been able to catch many of the games because, well, they're not on TV here because I am in school in New York. Honestly, the game might have been on last night, but it's too much of a hassle to be watching. I mean, and the Flyers are just playing like very mediocre hockey right now, and mediocre's putting it in probably the lightest terms possible. So, they're just not playing well, and the excuses that Dave Hakstol, I don't even know if you'd call them excuses, but the reasoning that Dave Hakstol is coming up with to kind of explain the losses is just complete bullshit at this point.
Oh, it's hilarious at this point. Hearing him talk about some of our players is specifically Shane Gostisbehere and Travis Konechny. Who the hell even knows what is going through his mind at this point? And that became even more apparent at the season ticket holders town hall meeting.
Oh my god, yes.
Oh, guys, I don't know how to explain this to you, but he actually believes that Andrew MacDonald has played like a legitimate top 3 to 4 role all year, and he's earned that from day one of camp. He actually said that, word for word.
Yeah. I wasn't watching it at the time, but I kind of saw it later on that day, or was it that night? I forget if I saw it that night or the next morning. But once I heard that he had said that, I was right now I'm lost for words still, because I just genuinely don't know what to think about that. He called Andrew MacDonald, who is, well, okay, Andrew MacDonald is, without question, the worst defenseman on our team. And, which is saying something because we have Brandon Manning on our team.
And Nick Schultz.
Yeah. And so Andrew MacDonald is god-awful. And the fact that Hakstol has the audacity to come out and say that, especially to season ticket holders who give this franchise boatloads of money per year, expecting that we're going to be putting the best players out on the ice night in and night out, and because of Dave Hakstol's want and apparent need to give Shane Gostisbehere a lesson and bench him, and Travis Konechny, a lesson and bench him. It's just, and then to say that Andrew MacDonald has played such an important role on this team to the season ticket holders, it's just, I don't know what else. I don't know how many more passes we can give him at this point.
It's just asinine. When I heard it the first time, I heard that he actually was defending MacDonald, I'm like, all right, what the hell did he say? Because if he had just said, he provides veteran leadership, he provides some kind of BS like that, while I still am going to hate it, I'm not going to be as critical as him saying, yeah, he has actually played he's basically saying that he's played better than Ghost. Because when you say that he's played like a top 3 or 4 defenseman, and you're playing him over Gostisbehere, you're basically saying that he's played better than him. And to say that is such a... I have no faith in him as a hockey coach if he actually believes that. Like, I know that a lot of people are still trying to be reasonable about this and give him a pass and just say, well, it's fine. Like, he'll eventually learn. Like, Amac's not going to be on this team forever. So freaking what? It's when he can't judge talent, we'll have guys like Sanheim and Moran and Hag and all these guys come up, and then he won't play him because he'll just be like, Hakstol, can you please keep Amac because he's the top 3 or 4 defenseman in the league. It's so...
Yeah, it really is. And to be fair, it's really okay. I'm hesitant when I say to be fair because it's really not the case in this stance. But to be fair to Dave Hakstol, Shane Gostisbehere he has been slumping this season. He had a great year last year, as we all know, and then this year he hasn't been performing as well. But if you look at the difference in the team between this year and last year, last season he had a good amount of the players that we have this season. But then you also have to add playmakers that we've added this year. So obviously, Provorov and Konechny both came up this year. They both made huge impacts on the team already. And they're just rookies. They're both, 19, 20 years old. And Shane Gostisbehere, even though he is in his second year in the league, and he should be taking steps forward, not backwards, especially with how well he played last year. To be fair to Dave Hakstol, Gostisbehere hasn't performed how we all want him to, but I don't.
It doesn't justify it.
Exactly. I don't necessarily think it gives Dave Hakstol the position. I mean, it does give him the position because he is the head coach, but I don't really think it gives him enough reason to do it.
Yeah, definitely not. And the main problem that I have with it is the fact that, again, he's not using at least semi-reasonable defenses of it. He's saying word for word that Andrew MacDonald has played good this year. That statistically is not the case. I don't care what you can say, like, oh, well, he hasn't been that bad. Yeah, he has. He's been horrible. To put this in perspective, again, I'm going to bring up Corsi a lot during this rant because Corsi is, in my opinion, at least, especially for defensemen, a really good test of how good the player is actually performing. How good are you about limiting chances, about generating chances?
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Corsi is similar to sabermetrics of baseball, basically.
Yeah, it's literally just basically the same thing. There's just not like in baseball. There's a WAR category.
Yeah,
there's
none
certain
of that. Categories that are
Yeah. So in terms of Corsi with AMAC, I'm going to use Ivan Provorov as the example here because Provorov has played with MacDonald for, at this point, most of the season. And he's actually played the most... Provorov has played with MacDonald for the most time this season. And his Corsi 4 percentage with AMAC is a 47.43. Without MacDonald, skyrockets to a 53%. And just in case, again, you're not familiar with this, if you're below 50%, you're below average, basically, in terms of possession and generating or denying chances. If you're above 50% and kind of in the 53 to 55 range, I want to say, then you're performing basically above average. And as you can tell, Provorov is a below average Corsi player with MacDonald,
quote,
and he's
below average.
Yeah, he's still really good. It's just that he doesn't look as good.
It's amazing that it's that close to average.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's the fact that Provorov just elevates MacDonald to astronomically high heights.
Yeah, because if you take a lot of the defensemen on our team, say from probably Provorov and Gostisbehere, and pretty much aside from Provorov and Gostisbehere, if you take any other defenseman and pair him with AMAC, you're probably going to get near a 40 Corsi. But
yeah,
it's just the level of Provorov just elevates MacDonald that much higher somehow. We don't know. Somehow. That it's very impressive that Provorov could even bring AMAC up to a 47.3, when they're paired.
Yeah, exactly. And to put it in perspective, with other defensemen on the team, Provorov's numbers go like this. 60% Corsi 4 percentage with Nick Schultz. Granted, it's only 3 minutes and 19 seconds worth of ice time, so it's really
Very
small sample size.
Yes.
But with Mark Streit, who we spent a lot of the beginning part of the season with, 54.29. Shane Gossesbear, 54.29 for Ghost, and then 54.93 for Streit. So,
The only person
how do you
that he is
pair
below
him with
average
AMAC?
with
Yeah,
is
exactly.
yeah. Well, at this point, I think it's better off that we pair him with AMAC just because he's pretty much our best defenseman at this point. Well, okay, Gossesbear may be better than him, but not this season. Right now, as it stands, Provorov is just having a great season defensively. You just see him night in and night out. Like you always see like Broad Street Hockey, like when they tweet out gifs, or all the like when the Flyers Twitter account tweets out gifs of Provorov making like these outstanding defensive plays. At this point, I just think it's kind of a necessity that we pair him with AMAC. As much as I hate to say it, because when you have a player of of MacDonald's caliber, which is not very good, and pair him with a young 19, 20-year-old who is still getting up to the pace of the league. Sure, you're going to get some veteran leadership, but in this case, it's more of like Provorov kind of coaching MacDonald because Provorov's better than him.
Provorov's the veteran in this case.
Yeah, but at this point, as much as I hate to say it, we kind of have to pair them together, just because if you pair anybody else with AMAC, it's just going to be abysmal, the defense.
I get what you're saying, but at the same time, it's like, has it worked so far? Not really. I mean, looking over at least the past couple of games, they haven't been scoring at all, and obviously that attributes to the fact that he decided to keep Ghost out of the lineup for whatever despicable reason he comes up with. Mm-hmm. But it's tough because you would look at a guy like Provorov and you know what this guy can become. Again, I know a lot of people have made this comparison. I'm pretty sure we have in the past, that he is probably comparable to a Drew Doughty. Like, he can amount to that type of skill level. And I just worry that it's hurting his development being paired with a guy as abysmal as MacDonald.
Yeah, I could definitely see where you're coming from in that. It's at this point in the season, I believe right now we're still hanging on to the second wild card spot. Are we? Or?
They fell out of it last night.
Fell out of it last night. Okay.
Yeah, I think Boston's in that spot now.
Okay, well, still, we're close to the wild card spot, so we still have a chance at making the playoffs. But it's like with the way they've been playing lately, with their offensive struggles, and with their defensive struggles, it's not really looking too hot at this point, and I just don't know. I guess you're right in a sense that we need to kind of switch up our defensive pairing just to try to get something out of somebody that we haven't gotten already. And I guess that's our only option at this point.
Yeah, and that's where I'm coming from with it. At this point, they're not getting anything going offensively, and what else could kind of generate that offense more besides putting your most offensively skilled defenseman in Ghost, and then playing with your most kind of all-around defenseman in Provorov.
Mm. Yeah, it's a sticky situation that we're in currently, just because we don't have the defensive depth that we'd like. Our offensive depth is there. They're just currently not performing, which it happens. Our offense has played predominantly well for most part of this season. So, and all teams are going to go through some form of slump, unless you're like the Golden State Warriors or something, just to compare, like caliber of teams. But teams are going to go through offensive struggles, and right now they're going through offensive struggles. I saw a GIF. I'm not sure if you saw it, or not a GIF, a video of a soccer team over in Europe, I want to say it was, that didn't score a goal for like 7 games or 6 games straight, and their fans would, their fans were behind the net, and they held
Oh,
a bunch of
yeah.
arrows and ran back and forth behind the goal, like pointing the arrows down toward the goal. And like at this point, like we might as well do that. We might as well just go to the Flyers game, bring a bunch of arrows, and just give them to the people behind the net.
I think we need to start that movement. Anyone listening to this who's going to a game recently or a game soon, please go ahead and do that.
Yeah, just bring a bunch of green arrows.
Or just make it
Bunch
orange because Flyers.
Make them orange, yeah.
Yeah.
Make them orange, make them black, make them white. Who cares?
Or maybe just maybe they could just put like Dave Hakstol's face in the back of
Yes, that is it right there. That's it. Put like Dave. Yeah, put Dave Hakstol. No, we put Vladimir Putin because he's gonna be playing our alumni.
the net. Just put like Putin's face in
a
one.
collage. Put a collage.
Yeah. Just put like Putin's face in one corner, and then Trump's face in the other, and just see what happens.
And then Hakstol, and we could have like
Yeah.
a 3-person target. That'd be amazing.
It'd be so beautiful. The Flyers would just be scoring top shelf goals all the time. Don't have to worry anymore.
Yeah, the entire time. Yeah. Okay, so now to move on from the Flyers, we're gonna move over to the
Wait, hold on a
76ers.
second. Hold on a second.
What? What? Oh.
Travis Konechny.
Oh yeah. What am I thinking? Okay, so yeah. Travis Konechny's out for like 6 weeks because he has like a lower body injury, which is ankle and knee. So, yeah, it's shitty.
Hockey injuries. Fantastic. Most
Very
descriptive injuries ever.
Yeah, and I'm looking at his stats here. He played 51 games. He scored 7 goals. He has 22 points and a -4, which is yeah, it's not really telling
meh.
to what his season was so far. The stat, like, honestly, just standard stat lines in all sports anymore. They're good for in the moment analysis, but in long term analysis, all the advanced stats are a lot better nowadays. Like with sabermetrics in baseball and all these different whatevers and all these other sports. But a -4 for Konechny is just, well, it's a testament to, because we all know how well he's played, but a -4 is just a testament to how poor our defense has been, and also that he has not been paired very effectively this year.
Yeah, and also doesn't help the fact that literally no one on the team is above even with plus minus. Reed is the only player who is not in the negatives. Every other player on the team is a negative whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Shingaza is a -21 because Hacksaw probably uses that as his argument. Well, he's a -21, so obviously he sucks at hockey.
Yeah, Dave, you put him with Andrew MacDonald. You put me with or you put freaking Vinny LeCavalier in his prime with Andrew MacDonald, and he's probably gonna put a -21 up.
You put Bobby Orr with Andrew MacDonald, and Bobby Orr's probably just gonna hit him in the face with his stick and just be like, no, give me a better one.
Yeah, give me like
Get this
good.
peasant away from me.
Give me like Chris Pronger or somebody.
Can we just bring Pronger back and then just put like Bieber, just put him on any team. Put him on the Penguins.
Yeah.
You might as well.
Might
And
as
then
well,
Pronger
yeah.
can just slam his face into the boards another 50 times because
Yeah, he could. Yeah,
must
put him
see
on
TV.
put him on the Penguins, so then he could like sabotage them, and then we could win
Exactly.
the Stanley Cup or something.
I mean, the Penguins will take anyone at this point because I'm pretty sure Crosby could make like me a really good hockey player, and I have no skating ability whatsoever.
Yeah, he could. Yeah, Sidney Crosby is like he's been he's been very good like the last decade he's been in the league, but this year, like, I don't know, it just seems like he's been like crazy good this year.
Yeah, his scoring is off the charts. Like everyone who really follows hockey knows this with Crosby. He's more of an assist guy than anything else. He's not a pure goal scorer. It's always been the comparison. It's essentially what this year has been with Austin Matthews and Patrick Laine. Laine's the goal scorer, and Matthews is the all-world talent that can. I mean, not that Ovechkin is, and not that Laine can't be an all-world talent, but you get what I'm saying. Laine is, I can score from 50 feet out each time, and then Matthews will just make literally every single player on the team better, even if he doesn't
Yeah.
play in the same line with them.
Yeah, it's just yeah. Okay, so now, like I mentioned a few minutes ago before I forgot about Travis Konechny, we'll be moving on to some to some Sixers stuff. So, obviously, we all most likely know that Joel Embiid has been missing from the lineup for a while now. The last game he played was the national televised game on ESPN against the Rockets, in which he dropped 32 with his knee problem. Even though he had a knee problem, dropped 32 on national TV with 7 rebounds. So, ever since then, it's just kind of been downhill. They lost to the Bulls after that game, beat the Kings, and then went on a 5-game losing streak, only to be snapped last night, Thursday, against the Magic, when T.J. McConnell hit another one. So yeah, what's your kind of take on how the Sixers are looking?
I feel like every time TJ McConnell comes out for intros, another one should just play in the background because
that would be amazing.
The way he can hit game winners, seemingly at will, what the hell has gotten into him? Like, I know we've said this so many times this year, but like, what? It's a 9-day difference from last year, and obviously Embiid's going to help with that. But he's doing it without JoJo at this point, and it's amazing to watch. And I still don't think that he has a long-term future on the team. I mean, if he does, it's a backup point guard role, but nothing really more than that. I can't imagine him starting for this team in, 3 to 4 years when we're competing for NBA championships year in and year out.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I think that he's at least forced the Sixers into, in no less in terms, giving a shit about him. Because I don't think really they had a plan for him at all after this year or next year probably. They were just like, yeah, he can just start for us, who cares? We're basically tanking this year anyway, so who cares? But he's turned himself into a really solid player, and I know John and Matt touched on this in their second to last episode of the Sixer Revolution, and I believe they both gave him like a B+, or at least Matt did, I think, because Matt's the only one who likes him. John doesn't, but no, he's been really good this year, and it was a really good win last night. I only saw the last couple of minutes because I was watching the Flyers, unfortunately, but it was really awesome to see that, and the same thing has been said with McConnell all year. He's a really good energy guy, and I think he, at the very least, has given the Sixers reason to kind of watch him a little bit more closely.
Yeah, and as you said, like before, he's been a really good playmaker this year, and I'm scrolling through, and pretty much most of the games, he's our assist leader. I mean, obviously we know at the beginning of the year, toward the beginning of the year at least, he had that, 17 assist game or whatever.
It was something crazy like that, yeah.
Yeah, something incredibly stupid. Stupid meaning good. But yeah, and he drew interest from the Cavs after, I believe it was after LeBron made his knowledge known, his thoughts known to the public that he wanted another playmaker. And I believe after that came out, after his kind of rant there, it came out that the Cavs were interested in T.J. McConnell, but then the Sixers ended up declining whatever offer they gave. I'm not sure if the offer was ever like made public.
I don't think so. No.
It just shows that T.J. McConnell kind of just came out of nowhere this year, and it's good to see because obviously we have Ben Simmons coming back, who is 6'11", and he could play point guard. So, which is in and of itself something immaculate. But anyway, we have Ben Simmons coming back more than likely near the end of this year, if not next year. But T.J. McConnell just gives us that leverage because if we keep him, it will not only give us a trade asset that we could trade to somebody needing a point guard or a backup point guard or some form of playmaker. It also just gives it the versatility because, like I said, Ben Simmons coming back, he's 6'11", could play point guard. T.J. McConnell is 6'2", and he's, if that, maybe 6'1", and he's a very good point guard, and it just gives us a lot of leverage.
Yeah, he's 6'2", surprisingly. I thought he was shorter than that. He looks shorter than that on TV.
He looks like 6 foot. Yeah, he looks like 6 foot.
Yeah. But, yeah, exactly. And it's crazy that McConnell's been able to put that together. And one of the main things with the Sixers right now, and speaking of trades and that thing with McConnell, Jahlil Okafor needs to be shopped soon because
Very
you're
soon.
not going to find another
Very.
time better than this to get him out of
Yeah,
town.
I said the other day on Twitter that I feel that we need to trade Okafor. He's been playing pretty well as of late, but I think that's just because, well, if you look at who we've played recently, we've played, aside from the 2 games against the Spurs, we've played against the Bulls, Kings, Mavericks, Heat, Pistons, and the Magic. Now, you could argue that, okay, Pistons have Andre Drummond, and the Heat have Whiteside, and the Kings have Boogie, right? But all those other teams, they really don't have that center that will give you a lot of problems. And even in so, we all know Okafor is a good oh my god, I was a defensive player.
Do not.
Okafor is a good offensive player, but he's a liability on defense. I could probably play better defense against guys like this.
It wouldn't take much. I mean, you could
It
just
really
stand there and put your arms up, and it would do the same thing that Okafor does, and probably be better.
It probably would be. And I made it known that, well, I think at least, that we should wait until right after the Rising Stars Challenge. And this was my reason. So if you go into the Rising Stars Challenge, right, and Okafor plays and plays well, then that means that we could say, oh, well, he's stacked up really well against the league's best young guys, because obviously the Rising Stars Challenge is first year and second year players. But if he does not perform well, or if he plays in a very limited role and he doesn't get in much, we could say, oh, well, the regular season is really where it matters, and he's been playing a lot better as of late. He's been playing against some decent competition, and so I don't know. I feel like we should wait until right after the Rising Stars game, which is this week anyway, or this upcoming week. And so I don't know. I just feel like right now there's no better time, there's no better time than right now to deal him, just because he's been playing well, like we mentioned. And so, yeah, we need to start looking very soon to get him out of here.
Definitely. And over his last few games, he's basically in the month of February, he's put up 16 points, 9 points. Didn't start against the Heat, didn't even play against the Heat. 16 against Detroit, 20 against San Antonio, and then only 7 last night. Which, how the hell do you only get 7 points against Nick Vucevic? You're supposed to be this amazing offensive center who can dominate everyone in the post. Nick Vucevic was too much of a challenge for you, but Andre Drummond wasn't.
Yeah.
There's, again, like I said, no better time to trade him than now. And look, for as much as we do not really like Okafor on this team, he does have value. It's just, I don't think it's here, and I really don't think that he's going to be that great anywhere else. But
his value is just, on this team, it's not up to what his value could be with other teams. And that's the risk we're willing to take, that his value will only kind of flatline or even decline with other teams, and we get something in return that will help us in the long run, because as we all known for the past few seasons, we have a logjam at center. And obviously we have Joel Embiid, we have Nerlens Noel, and currently those are the two that most of us would prefer. So trading Okafor would just get us something in return that we could use that would better our offense, because we need some guards. Might need a shooting, or excuse me, a small forward, power forward, maybe. I mean, we have guys, but you never know. Injury could arise. These guys could, whatever, they can become the next LeBron. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that has made this Okafor situation really interesting is the fact that Joel Embiid has been what he's been. Because everyone has said, oh, well, Noel isn't great offensively, and he isn't, but he's an elite rim defender. Okafor, it's complete opposite. He's great offensively, and then is basically a pylon. He's Andrew MacDonald defensively. But the fact that you have Joel Embiid, who is an offensive animal, and can play really elite defense, it makes everything so much easier for them because they can just say, well, why would we go with Okafor, who is only an offensive player, when we have the offensive production at the center from a guy like Embiid? We would rather have the elite defender coming off the bench in Noel. At least that's
Exactly.
how I've taken it. But
Yeah, I would much rather an elite defender coming off the bench than an elite person on offense because, like, I heard this quote on, I believe it was, I forget if it was on, I was watching The Herd, Colin Cowherd's radio, and simulcast on Fox Sports 1, and I heard somebody say that offense is skill, defense is effort, and Okafor just does not give the effort. And I would so much rather Nerlens Noel giving all of his effort and focusing on defense. Obviously, he could score. He's an NBA player. To be in the NBA, you need to know how to score somewhat, and he knows how to score somewhat. So, him being on our team, talking about Nerlens Noel, and him giving effort on defense, which Okafor does not do, is just so much more of a favorable situation.
Yeah, and the thing is, if Okafor coming off the bench, you want guards who can shoot and big men who can defend. Okafor is if you were a guard, Jaleel, I'd be fine with you, but you're not. You're a center, and you give no defensive help whatsoever, and just lets people walk straight to the rim, and has no positioning or awareness ability whatsoever. So, again, you need guards who can shoot coming off the bench. Obviously, you need guards who can defend as well, but it's more valuable to have guards or forwards who can shoot threes and just score in general coming off the bench than it is valuable to have a center who can score.
Yeah, and even with how the game's changed,
exactly.
The Warriors are a prime example. Look at their team. They have Zaza Pachulia as their center.
Who almost made the All-Star team.
Exactly, and they have a bunch of just guys who could just shoot the absolute hell out of the ball. You have Steph, you have Clay, you have KD, and you have all these bench guards who come off the bench and score. You have Draymond Green. You have this very, very good shooting team, and you have Zaza Pachulia in the center. It's just that just shows how much they have changed this game. And look at their record; they're 30 whatever, or 40 something, and 5 or 6. And so it's just we need we have the offensive center in Embiid, and he's very good on defense too. And then we also have Nerlens Noel and Joel Okafor. But since we already have the offensive center, it just gives us that much more leverage and that much more of an advantage over other teams, because all these other teams are signing guards who are going to shoot threes like the Warriors do. But we also have a center who could shoot threes. And so we also have Nick Stauskas, and we also have Dario Saric, and we also have all these other guys who could shoot threes. So we're just going to be a lot more ahead of the game.
Oh yeah, definitely. In a few years when the Sixers are actually competing for championships, there's going to be such a size disadvantage. It's going to look like the West against the East in the All-Star game.
It really will. It's going to, because all these West teams, I mean, you could look at them all. The West teams are lacking in size. They play a center, and then they play pretty much 2 small forwards and 2 guards at this point. And if that's even arguable, because a lot of teams are running 3 guards and a small forward or power forward and then a center. And then in the East, you have teams like the Cavs. They have Tristan Thompson, they have Kevin Love, all these guys down low. LeBron, who's a powerhouse, obviously, and then you have 2 guards. And then you have the Sixers, who will, when in a few years they are playing on a much higher level than they are now, will have guys down low who could score in the post, on the perimeter, in the paint, everywhere, with also having guards who will be able to score in the post, because apparently Ben Simmons is a guard. Who knew? And so he'll be able to score everywhere because he's a 6'11" point guard.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and we've said this a bunch of times, and a lot of people have said this a bunch of times. They're going to be unstoppable when Simmons gets in and he's at his full potential, because he's just going to drive to the basket every time and dish off to Embiid or Saric or whoever, and they're going to be wide open because teams are going to be terrified to death of Simmons just dominating them in the post in the paint and just driving to the rim like LeBron does.
Yeah, he's Ben Simmons, and I'm not sure if I'm crazy to think this, but Ben Simmons may be when he's playing at the level that we all think he's gonna play. When he's playing at that level, he might be a more difficult defensive matchup than LeBron currently is. And I don't know if I'm crazy to say that, but the only reason I say it is because LeBron is 6'8", right? He's 275 or whatever, which is freak of nature. But the thing is, you could put small forwards on him. So like Kawhi Leonard, when the Spurs play the Cavs, Kawhi Leonard generally guards LeBron. And if you have a solid defensive player who is of Kawhi's caliber and of Kawhi's size, then you could easily guard LeBron. You're not going to shut him down because he's LeBron, but you could guard him, and you can kind of limit him somewhat. But Ben Simmons, when you have a 6'11 guard, who are you going to put on him?
Exactly. There's no one in the league who can compare to him. And like your point about LeBron, a guy like Paul George guarded him in that one series a few years ago when LeBron was still in the Heat. Everyone made a big deal about how Paul George locked down LeBron in that series. And it goes to show that, yeah, you're not exactly going to completely shut down LeBron because it's LeBron. But he's at least semi-guardable. Ben Simmons, on the other hand, again, if you put him at point guard, who is realistically going to guard him? Russell Westbrook might be the only guy who even has a chance at it, and even then, he's still, 8 inches shorter than him?
Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah, their Sixers are going to have such a size advantage when, again, they have everyone on the team that they realistically are planning for in the next few years. And especially if they get like a Markelle Fultz at point guard or Jason Tatum, the size advantage is going to be ridiculous. And I realistically don't think that anyone's going to be able to stop them, unless they again adapt to what the Sixers are doing.
Yeah, and like you said with Fultz, like there is a possibility. It's small, but there is a possibility that the Sixers are going to have 2 top 5 picks this year. Or is it top 6? I'm not sure. It's somewhere in that realm. But just think of the players we have in place right now with Ben Simmons, with Dario Saric, with Joel Embiid, with all these guys, TJ McConnell, obviously Nick Stauskas. Those guys, they still have some to prove, but they've been improving a lot better, a lot more recently. So I think Nick Stauskas and TJ McConnell right now currently have the best chance of having, bench roles and key player roles going forward because, Nick Stauskas, we all know he could hit threes a lot, and TJ McConnell is just a great playmaker who's going to switch it up on offense because he just makes a ton of unorthodox plays, and obviously, as we know, he's a clutch shooter. But like you said with Markelle Fultz, if we get him and another top 5 pick, like you said, Jason Tatum, like the possibilities are endless. Even we could trade the pick, get a decent player back. We
Jimmy
just have
Butler.
a lot of leverage. Yes.
I can dream, right?
Oh my God! Imagine that lineup, man. Holy.
Again, like the Sixers have so many just assets available to them,
Avenues
whether it be
to just go down.
Yeah, and like they can either decide to flip someone for a superstar, or they can decide to just keep on going through the draft and building that way. I'm fine with either one. Like at this point, I believe that they can draft like the right player at the right time. I don't think that I think Colangelo has a decent idea of what he's doing, and I think the Sixers are really set up for a great future. And one guy that's interesting is Covington, because if they do draft Fultz, I'd assume he moves to either shooting guard or they just play him at point, and then Simmons moves to small forward, and then you could have Covington coming off the bench, and you have McConnell, and you have Stauskas. That's a really good-looking team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just think, like, right now our starters, say from okay, well when Embiid is out, our starters now with because they're playing fairly well against good NBA teams. Like you're don't get me wrong, like the Spurs and uh, all these teams they were gonna play the Rockets, the Bucks when we beat the Bucks, but like the Hawks, all these teams, the Clippers beat the Clippers, but all these teams with the current lineup we put out, generally you're not gonna see them winning. But we're 19-34 at this point. Joel Embiid has been out decent amount of games recently, pretty much all of them. He's out again tonight, or excuse me, on Saturday against the Heat. But even with that, and with our starting lineup now, and how well they're playing, there's potential for a lot better. And pretty much our starting lineup now would end up just becoming a bench, like our bench, and that's like very good.
Yeah, because when you have when you're building a team and the team that you're fielding right now is nowhere near is basically going to be your bench when the guys you really want on the team come in, that's probably the best scenario that you could possibly have.
Mm. Yeah, especially when you're only 5.5 games out of the playoffs. I mean,
Yeah, they're still in it.
realistically, this season probably not, but next season for sure, and then the following season and beyond. Yeah, like this team has a lot of potential going forward.
If I'm going to compare this to a team in another sport, the Sixers are essentially the Maple Leafs. The way that they were horrible uh, last year, and then I'm not going to call them horrible this year, but just not great, not good. But then what they're going to be next year, and which is what Toronto is this year, it's exactly going to be like the same thing. Like Toronto's all these guys like Matthews, Nylander, Mitch Marner. Sixers are going to have Embiid, Simmons, Saric, excuse me. Hopefully one of Fultz, Tatum, Malik Monk, just any of those top picks that are projected. They're going to have everything set up for them, and yeah, they should definitely contend for a playoff spot next year. I'll be disappointed if they aren't contending for a playoff spot next year.
Yeah, there's no reason they shouldn't, especially if everybody's healthy. Obviously, Embiid. If Embiid, I would presume that. Okay, well, Embiid more than likely will come back this year. More than likely, Ben Simmons will debut this year. But if for whatever reason we decide that that they're not going to come back this year, and just start them up fresh next year, then we might. I don't see how it would be a bad case, but I don't really necessarily see how it would be like a great case because having Embiid sit for this long after he's already sat for 2 years, and then having to kind of keep Ben Simmons back from starting. But honestly, I don't think we have to worry about that scenario just because I don't see how or why that would happen. I presume both of them will be in the lineup at some point again this year. So
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are impatient with the whole process and why are they waiting so long to bring JoJo back? Why are they waiting so long to bring Simmons in? Do you want another Greg Oden? Like, do you want what happened to Portland fans happen to us? No, you don't. You want our best players healthy and performing for years to come. I'm fine with them waiting for Simmons to get here. I know that it sucks. I know we all want to see him play. He's the number one pick in the draft. It's our first number one pick since Iverson. We all know how that turned out. But you have to just kind of keep a level head, and especially in the NBA, because realistically, even if Simmons came back at this point, they're not going to go on a finals run. They're not going to go on a deep playoff run. They would get in the first round, face the Cavs, face the Raptors, and lose in probably 5 or 6 or 4 games. There's no way they take that to Game 7 or anything. And then there's no way they win that series without having like a bunch of injuries on the other side. Like DeRozan would go down, or LeBron, Kyrie, Love. I'm going to count even Korver in there at this point. But yeah, it's wait till next year, be a legitimate playoff contender, a legitimate like deep playoff run contender next year, and we'll see what happens.
yeah, next year we would personally next year if we could get into the 7-5 range in the playoffs, I would count that as a success.
Yeah.
Obviously, if we made the 8th seed, I'd be happy with it. But if we got from maybe like the 7, 6, or 5 seed, um, obviously we would want the 5 seed because then we'd be playing maybe the Wizards or the Hawks, some form of that team.
Paul
Or if,
Millsap versus Embiid, yes.
yes, that'd be amazing. But if we were in like the 6th seed, we might end up playing the Celtics or the Raptors, or I mean maybe the Wizards. Who knows? But I feel like next year 7 to 5 seed would be a success. 8 seed would be a success, but I don't know. I just feel like a 7 to 5 seed would just suit it, just because of the potential and the expectation of this team, especially with two potential high draft picks this season, plus what we already have. It's just that would be like the first sign of like the process becoming complete.
Yeah. And again, we're assuming that there's going to be no injuries, like that they're going to be relatively healthy. This is like a 2K thing where like you put the injuries on none, but it they have a realistic chance about it, and it's and kind of a segue to what we're going to be talking about next with the Phillies. It's kind of the same thing with them. Like to think that they're a wild card hopeful this year isn't necessarily out of the question. They have a decent chance about it if everyone can perform to the level that some of them did last year, and that we all know that they're
Cans.
projected to perform. Yeah.
Yeah, so you segued us perfectly. Great job. So, as you said, we're gonna be talking about some Philly stuff. So yeah, so and like Kyle said, a wild card spot, or at least a wild card contention this year is not crazy to think about. It's more than likely not going to happen. I wouldn't say more than likely. It's likely to not happen that we make the wild card. But if Cameron Rupp builds on his first half of last season, obviously he declined in the second half. If Tommy Joseph builds on his second half of the season, if Cesar Hernandez builds on his second half, if Michael Franco goes back to rookie Michael Franco, and if we get people here that, because obviously we signed Michael Saunders, signed Howie Kendrick, these guys are going to come in as vets. They're going to kind of give these young guys some days off here and there. Well, those two will most likely start. But yeah, they'll give these guys tips. They'll kind of help them out of slumps. They'll help them improve. And the thing about playoffs this year, long shot, but it is possible.
Yeah, for sure. And looking at the Phillies roster, obviously, they have a lot of guys who can hit the baseball. Rupp can be a 20 home run guy. Joseph can be a 20 home run guy. Cesar, we saw what he did last year with increasing his average a lot. And we touched on everything else that was wrong with Cesar, but for now we'll stick to the good things. Shortstop Galvis somehow hit 20 home runs last year. I don't think he's going to exactly do that again, but I think he at least has
15.
15, exactly. Franco, you would please hope that he's a 30 home run guy.
30, yeah.
Yeah. Howie Kendrick is probably like about a 10, 12 guy. I think his power has kind of gone down over the years, of course, but Odubel could kind of be in that same range. And Michael Saunders, especially playing here and in Philly in a hitter's ballpark, he could definitely hit over 20. So there's a lot of guys in our lineup who can hit over 20 home runs. And assuming everyone in our rotation stays healthy and performs to kind of their highs in their career, yeah, there's a decent chance that they could contend for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I presume that we probably have very similar predictions as to who's going to win the jobs out of spring training. So how I have it as Cam Rupp is going to be the starting catcher, Tommy Joseph at first, second base Cesar, third base Franco, shortstop Galvis. Starting outfielders are going to be Howie Kendrick, Odubel, and Michael Saunders. And then I have our starting pitching at Hellickson as the 1, Eichhoff at the 2, Buchholz 3, Velasquez 4, Nola 5.
I would ask, why Nola at 5? Just rationale.
Okay, yeah. So I was kind of going back and forth with this. Actually, originally I had it Hellickson, Eichhoff, Buchholz, Nola, Velasquez. But then I switched Velasquez and Nola, and I was kind of playing with it in my head. I didn't. The bottom three of our rotation, presumably of Buchholz, Velasquez, and Nola, honestly, I think could go in any order. But personally, I put it Buchholz 3, Velasquez 4, and Nola 5. And simply because of this. Nola came off the beginning of last year, or excuse me, came off last spring training and started the regular season fantastically. He started out amazing. But then, as we all know, he declined. Nobody knew what was going on. And he had one start. I think we skipped a start, and then he came out and threw 6 innings of two-hit ball. Beautifully done. And then took him out. He threw 70, I think, pitches, maybe 65. So we were like, okay, great, we have Aaron Nola back. And then the next start, he went out and got shelled again, and then he ended up going on the DL for the rest of the season with I think it was elbow trouble. So I put him at 5 just on the fact that we don't know if he's fully healthy yet, and putting him on the 5th day wouldn't be any different than putting him on the first day, in my opinion, when it comes to injury. It's just I think he needs to kind of get into okay, this is like, we're back in the swing of things. I need to be that pitcher that I was at the beginning of last season.
Yeah, fair enough. It is kind of like, the rotation is kind of a weird thing because it really doesn't matter when they start. It's just all kind of all about matchups, like the old school theory of, oh, you need your ace against the other team's ace, which, yeah, it works most times, but also it's baseball and anything can happen. You can get a really good outing from a guy like Joe Blanton somehow, and then against a guy like just like a Clayton Kershaw or whatever. But yeah, the rotation is kind of completely up for grabs this year. The way I have it set up is Helly, Nola, Buchholz, Ike, and then Velasquez. I was really debating putting Velasquez in the bullpen and then having Thompson in the rotation, just because I do think that Thompson's going to have really good spring training, but I think just based off what Velasquez did last year that they'll just kind of put him there by default and see what happens.
Yeah, I played with Velasquez in the bullpen in my head as well. But then I looked at our bullpen, because our bullpen is pretty much set in stone aside from one spot. So how I have it, and how a ton of other people have it, our relievers this year will most likely be Adube Ramos, Joaquin Benoit, Pat Neshek, Hector Neris, Genmar Gomez, Joely Rodriguez. Guarantees, pretty much, because Joely Rodriguez, he came up last year toward the end of the year, performed very well. Obviously, Hector Neris had a crazy good year. Genmar Gomez had a very good year. Adube Ramos, who came up in June, I believe, the middle of June, he didn't really have the highest of expectations because he was, I believe, like our 29th ranked prospect. He didn't really have the highest of expectations, and he performed pretty well. And then obviously our off-season signings of Benoit and Nishik, they're pretty good relievers over the course of their career. But then that leaves one spot left, presumably, assuming that we carry a 5-man bench. And personally, I put Cesar Ramos in there just because he's a lefty, and he's kind of the diamond in the rough kind of player that we are all hoping will perform, just because we have 5 righties and only 1 lefty pretty much guaranteed right now, and we kind of need another lefty in the bullpen, so yeah, that's why I put him in there.
And I'm going to ask you something about that after. I want to give what I projected my lineup to be with. I want to ask you something about that. I have the lineup set up as Cesar, Howie, and left, of course, Odubel, Joseph, Franco, Saunders, then Rupp, then Galvis. I just thought it was a good mix of kind of like righty lefty for most like the top part of the lineup, and then obviously like the two. And there's a really good mix of hitters, like Cesar switch hitter, Howie hits right, Odubel's lefty, but then Galvis is another switch hitter. So I think that lineup should just be. It's probably not what they're going to go with, just because I think they kind of like Franco hitting in the 3-hole, and then probably Odubel hitting second, but we'll see how it turns out then. And what I want to ask you about the rotation and just kind of like the bullpen in general is, are you worried about the amount of righties that we have compared to like basically no lefties?
Right now I would say no, but moving forward I'd say yeah. The only reason I'd say no now is because if you look at our rotation and our bullpen, out of the 12 guys in our rotation and our bullpen, you'd have to say Hellickson is a trade option, Buchholz trade option, Benoit trade option, Nishek trade option, Gomez trade option. So right there, you have at least 5 of the players that are trade options. And then you could argue, maybe throw Hector Neris as a trade option, but personally, I wouldn't trade him at this point. But and right now, no, just because in return of those guys, we're more than likely going to get pretty decent prospects. And if Matt Contact plays his cards right, you never know. You can get a diamond in the rough out of a trade, excuse me, and a lefty in the bullpen. But long term, if we don't trade those guys, or we do trade those guys and don't find that diamond in the rough, then I'd be worried about it.
Yeah, right now I think, especially since we're not really a legitimate playoff contender, like to go deep, or at this point probably not even too many people that we can contend for a playoff spot. It's not an entirely big deal, but yeah, later, especially with the amount of, Phillies, of course, we've talked about this a lot, have a plethora of pitching prospects. The triple A's there.
Yeah.
Or triple P's. God, what am I even talking about? But anyway, a lot of the prospects are right-handers as well, so it should be interesting to see how Clintact kind of decides that, and if he really values kind of those lefty-righty matchups as a big deal or not, because sometimes I feel like it gets really overrated. Obviously, there are some hitters on both sides of the plate who don't do well against, lefties don't perform well against lefties, but then you have some guys who could just kind of debunk that argument. So it'll be interesting to see how they play that in the future. But I think, yeah, for now, it's probably not that big of a deal, but something they should just kind of be wary of in the future.
Mm-hmm. And then to round out the 25 man, so here I'll kind of go over what I have so far. So, Rupp, Joseph, Hernandez, Franco, Galvis, Kendrick, Herrera, Saunders, starting 8, not in that order, obviously just lineup or just positional. Rotation: Hellickson, Eichhoff, Buchholz, Velasquez, Nola. Relievers: Ramos, Benoit, Nishik, Neris, Gomez, Rodriguez, Ramos. That's who I have. And then as our bench players, here's where one of I don't know if you would say here's where one of my here is where my bold prediction lies. So at catcher, I have Andrew Knapp backing up Cameron Rupp. And then obviously we have super utility man Andres Blanco, who's going to be second base, third base predominantly. More than likely he'll probably end up backing up Tommy Joseph at first sometimes, but there's somebody else that I have in mind. And then we also have, to round out the outfielders, Aaron Altair is probably going to be on the bench, and Chris Coughlin, who we signed just this past week to a minor league deal with an invite to spring training. I have those two rounding out the outfield. But then the last person I have to solidify the 25 man is Brock Stasi. Now,
whoa,
my bold prediction with Brock Stasi, right, is that he is going to absolutely rake during spring training, okay? And he is going to get a solidified bench bat role, and he's also going to have... I wouldn't say he's going to platoon with Tommy Joseph, just because that's not reasonable, but he's going to get some decent time behind Tommy Joseph at first base, and he's going to show that maybe he will become not an everyday first baseman, just because that's not who he is, but he will become some sort of trade value that we could get something in return for.
I was not expecting that. God damn, Jared. So, you were making Clintack and McCannon's life living hell, because you were giving them such a problem at first base now with the fact that we have Hoskins coming up, and then your Stasi's going to be a solid player as well. Damn, that's... I mean, it's a good thing. It's a
good problem, man.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that when we were discussing the first baseman piece that Jared did, and it's about how the depth at first base isn't exactly the best, but if Sassy can turn into that type of player who can be a good bat off the bench, that is perfect. That at least solves the problem for at least a little bit in terms of first baseman depth.
Yeah, and then I'll read you some of his winter league numbers. So he played very well in the winter league this past year. Um, so he hit 297 in 32 games. He had 111 at bats. So he hit 297, nearly 300. He had 7 doubles, 6 home runs, and then here's where it gets not crazy, but here's his very good numbers. So he had more walks than he did strikeouts. He had 31 walks compared to 23 strikeouts. He had a 448 on base percentage. He slugged 541. He had an OPS of 988. So I mean, okay, you could say, okay, well, he's not playing the best competition. Well, yeah, he's not playing the best competition, but still, those are very good numbers, especially over 32 games. Like 32 games is 32 games, no matter where you are. It's not a huge sample size, but it's enough of a sample size, especially in a winter league, in a setting that he's really not used to playing, because it was more than likely in the Dominican, I believe. So, and it's just, he played very well, and that's kind of the reasoning behind why I think that he's going to build off it, and he's gonna earn a 25-man spot, and he's just gonna end up becoming our backup first baseman and a really good bench bat.
I hope it happens. That would be really great to see him find a way to have a really good spring training and then make the team for opening day, because again, like, sure, Blanco could play some first base, and even Howie Kendrick I think could, but it would be nice to have a kind of solidified backup first baseman so Joseph wouldn't have to carry the load so much, and would kind of relieve some of the pressure off of him in his first full year in the majors.
Yeah,
But
because especially for Joseph, knowing that he wouldn't just have like temporary backup first baseman like Blanco and Kendrick behind him, he would have like a actual first baseman behind him.
yeah, it would give him just a lot more security there, and I can only imagine that would help his play just because it would take so much pressure off of him.
Yeah.
But so again, so Jerry gave his bold prediction, and I have one is kind of not as bold, and then the other is kind of the main one. I'm gonna say Adubre Ramos becomes a closer at the very least by the end of the season, but I think he could easily win the job by mid-season or even earlier than that. I really like what I saw from him in the limited time we saw him perform last year.
Very much so.
I know you love Hector Neris, and I think we all do, but I think I would just give the edge to Ramos just because I think they like his fastball a lot more than Neris's. Neris obviously has like a lot more. I think he's probably the better relief pitcher, but in terms of closing, I think they're probably going to lean towards Ramos, and I'm kind of hoping for it at this point just because I really like the way he pitches. So I'm hoping that happens. And the other one is that 4 Phillies will make their debuts this season. 4 prospects will make their debut.
Okay.
I'm going to say Nick Williams gets in at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say Dylan Cozens gets in.
Mm-hmm.
And Jorge Alfaro. And kind of a shocker, maybe Ben Lively.
Okay. So you don't think J.P. Crawford is going to be called up this year?
Make it 5.
Okay.
I may have forgotten about JP. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Okay.
I was going through that and I'm
definitely
like, wait.
Yeah, so, okay, so to kind of go back to your first, yeah, Ramos as closer, definitely a reasonable kind of projection. He does have a very electric fastball. It touches high 90s. Neris's, I believe, touches about 96, 97. You know, it's still pretty good. But yeah, Ramos he has good closer stuff, especially if he works on his off speed, because right now Neris has the edge on him and off speed, but
Definitely.
Ramos does have that fastball advantage. But if he does kind of improve upon his off speed stuff, I don't see how he wouldn't end up being the closer at some point this year, even if it was for a few games, or if our bullpen was on a heavy workload and he didn't pitch and then needed to close the next night or something. Yeah, it's a fair thing. And to go to your second point, I could definitely. All right, so we all thought Nick Williams was going to be up last year, then he struggled and he didn't. But I don't see really any circumstance in which he doesn't, because we have pretty much three people that I at least think are going to make the opening day roster that will more than likely, or there's a decent possibility that they will be traded. Howie Kendrick, Michael Saunders, Chris Coughlin. So I think there's a reasonable chance that him, and the same with Cousins, he's an outfielder. There's a reasonable chance that he does make it. We saw a tad bit of Alfaro, but I wouldn't really put that as his debut.
Yeah, that's why I didn't really count it, because I'm like, he maybe started like 2 games, and they just had him there to kind of like look
Yeah,
and
I
see
mean,
what's going on.
technically it was his debut, but I personally don't put it as his debut. So yeah, definitely, he could definitely be a thing to watch for. Just because obviously Cam Rupp could be dealt, Andrew Knapp could be dealt, an injury could happen, you don't know. And then who was left? Oh, Ben Lively. Yeah, Ben Lively. That is a decent one. I could see it as well. I wouldn't say it's a long shot, but I would say it's probably out of those four, the one that would probably happen either the furthest into the season or wouldn't happen at all. Just because we have a pretty solid bullpen this year, and like I did say, there are a lot of trade assets. But we saw last year what happened with trade assets with Jeremy Hellickson. He didn't go anywhere, even though that pretty much everyone and their mother was trying to trade for him.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the thing with Lively is that going into my rationale was, I think they could probably use him in the bullpen as well, which could open up the door for him to kind of get in there, because obviously we're probably trading Nishek. We're definitely going to trade Benoit at some point. Gomez could easily be dealt at some point. So I think Lively definitely has... At some point, I think the Phillies should just go with a 6-man rotation this season, just because there's so many pitching prospects that they have. And I think it's at a certain point you're going to be wasting their time just having them pitch in AAA or AA or wherever. So I think for a guy like Lively, who dominated last year in AAA with the Iron Pigs, I think he's going to have really good spring training, and I'd be surprised if he made the opening day roster, but I think it's not going to take him that long to earn a major league spot.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. He's more than capable. I've seen a lot of people kind of giving him flack for his game, because he doesn't really have like the best stuff out of relievers. Well, he's a starter, but
Yeah, like a lot of people have said that he could be
jam at starter. Yeah, we're in a log jam at starter, if you haven't heard, and he's kind of not our best option, one of our top 5 options at least. And so I personally think that he will be a bullpen, as do many people, a bullpen piece, as do many people. And yeah, I don't really see it taking him much time to take the next step up to the bigs.
Yeah, I doubt it either. And that's the case with a lot of guys we have down there in the minors. Like, Eflin's not going to take that long to get back up. Same thing with Thompson. Even a guy like Nick Pivetta, who I think is a lot closer than a lot of people think he is. He's been progressing just a lot better especially last year. Like, if you look at his stats from his time with the Nationals compared to last season with Redding, and
he was with that Valley as well.
Okay, yeah, I thought he got the call at some point last year, but he's close. Like, I think he's another guy like Lively you could try him at reliever, but I think he at this point has kind of solidified himself as a starting pitcher prospect and not a relief pitcher prospect. Because I know when they traded for him, a lot of people were saying like, "Oh, we'll just make him into a closer or a reliever," and he's kind of shut that down pretty quickly with how he performed last year with Reading.
Yeah, him and Lively are two people that I don't see a ton of hype around, but personally, I don't see why there aren't more people, not necessarily hyping the absolute crap out of them, but I don't see why there aren't as many people kind of giving them props for how they've kind of solidified themselves as legitimate prospects in our org. We have better prospects, Zach Eflin, Jake Thompson. They're not really prospects anymore because they have been in the league. But we generally don't have many prospects below them, or at least close to them in level. I mean, because all of our very good pitching prospects are low minors right now, and so they're gonna have some time to kind of prove their worth, and I think they will, both Pivetta and Lively.
Same. I think that at the very least they'll tear up AAA this year in the Iron. We've talked about this.
Well,
many
the
times.
Iron Pigs are just stupid good.
Lehigh Valley is going to be a fun place to be. The Phantoms are such a really good team, and then the Iron Pigs. If you haven't been to a Iron Pigs game or Phantoms game, get out there soon because tickets might cost more for them than they are for the Flyers or Phillies.
Probably.
At this rate, it wouldn't surprise me in the least because their product of play is probably so much better at this point than what the Phillies and Flyers are going to put out.
It definitely is, and yeah, like you said, if you can't or if you haven't seen any of their games, definitely go watch. You'll see glimpses of the future. J.P. Crawford, Nick Williams, Jorge Alfaro, probably. You'll see the pitchers. You'll see some relievers. You'll see who knows. You might even see like a Matt Klentak there or something. He might be there. Who knows?
Yeah, one doubted that those are like his babies. He traded for basically every single one of them or drafted almost all of them. So
yeah, basically our entire AAA right now. Because you figure he traded for Nick, he traded for Alfaro, he traded for
Thompson,
a bunch of other guys. Thompson, he traded for pretty much half our AAA roster.
It's amazing what he's done. And I'm going to go back to the Maple Leafs reference. Phillies are going to be that.
Probably.
They are on that type of run. Obviously, it's harder to predict with baseball just because it's baseball. Everything is hard to predict. But, might not be anymore with that extra innings rule that they want to implement. But
oh, my God.
We'll get to that then. But
yeah, that'll be soon. That'll be after this.
Yeah, but actually, I'm going to throw in another bold prediction. Freddie Galvis gets traded.
Freddie Galvis gets traded. You see, I've seen some people saying that. Not many, but I have seen a few kind of floating that out there. And personally, it depends. It depends if J.P. Crawford plays like pre-Lehigh Valley last season, J.P. Crawford. If J.P. Crawford comes in this year, because there's like a 99% chance that he's going to begin the year with Lehigh Valley. If he comes in to Lehigh Valley, and over the first, I'd probably say give him at least 2 months. So probably towards the end of May, maybe early June, if he is just absolutely raking in AAA, I would say put Freddie Galvis out on the trading block and call J.P. Crawford up as soon as you trade him. And personally, I wouldn't look for a huge return from Freddie Galvis just because he doesn't kind of possess that kind of charisma and that kind of value that maybe a Cesar Hernandez would, just because Cesar is a lot more versatile than Galvis, even though he may not show it at some points. But yeah, Freddie Galvis is definitely a good trading option because he puts up power numbers. He's an incredible defender. So yeah, I see that as a possibility. I don't say a long shot, but I'd say definitely not a guarantee.
Yeah, that's what I think the fact that Galvis defensively is arguably one of the top 3 probably defensive shortstops in the league, I think this is going to apply to appeal to so many teams out there, and especially in the AL who might not have the best fielding shortstops because it's the AL. They care more about hitting over there because DHs and all that. But I think if he can get off to a solid start and just solid enough that it can just get people interested, maybe not even so much just overall stats, but hit a few walk-off home runs, get walk-off hits, some big hits, just standout plays that have teams going, maybe we should just try to trade for this guy as depth for the playoffs. And it can just be another situation like what we're going to have with Howie Kendrick and Saunders.
Yeah, looking at like teams that might be a decent fit for him. Presumably this season, the Nationals, they still have a fairly good farm system, and they have a shortstop, and I believe Danny Espinosa is their shortstop, or it's either second base. I'm not even sure. But they have a shortstop now, but he's not a power guy. Like I'm fairly certain it's Danny Espinosa, and he's not like the biggest power guy, and he's gonna hit for a pretty good average though. But Freddie Galvis will come in and late, and he'll hit doubles, he'll hit home run or whatever. So Nationals probably a good fit. Maybe the Cardinals, just because Freddie can also play second base, like he did a few years back, when we still had J-Roll. And I don't know. There's probably some AL teams, maybe like the Orioles or somebody like that, somebody of that caliber who's not a playoff lock, but has a decent chance at making the playoffs. So yeah, it's definitely I could see it happening.
And funny enough, I went to the Nationals website just to see who is their shortstop because I had completely forgotten who it was. And of course, one of the first things I saw on their homepage was Nationals won World Series title in 2017, and I immediately thought, how many years straight is that of having that same headline? Probably because they've been doing that probably since like 2015. But it's not going to happen, Nationals. I'm sorry.
Nope.
Trey Turner is their starting shortstop.
Trey Turner, they have him at short.
Yeah, and Steven Drew is the backup.
Okay, so Danny Espinosa must be their second baseman, or he's not even on the team anymore.
He's not on the team. Yeah, he's
not on the team anymore. He was definitely on the Nationals last year. That's all I know.
Yeah, I remember because he just would kill the Phillies every time because Nationals.
Yeah.
But yeah, Trey Turner.
Trey Turner, shortstop.
Literally when you go to his like player page, it says center fielder. It doesn't say like center fielder /
Yeah, because
shortstop.
he played center field last year when he got called up, and he played really well there. Like there was a lot of good defensive plays that he made. But I guess he's their starting shortstop this year.
It's the Nationals. They don't care. They just want everyone who can hit in the lineup so they can win a World Series because the Nationals have no idea how to build an actual World Series contender.
Yeah, like the Cubs.
Yeah, okay. Turner has played 8 games in his career at shortstop. He played 6 in 2015 and 2 last year, and he didn't even start at shortstop in those games. He played more at second base. So who even knows how that's going to work out? He might just turn into another like Ian Desmond where he hits the cover off the ball every time, but then has like 50 errors in one season.
Yeah. That doesn't make much sense. I mean, he could. I'm not sure. I'm not polished on the history of Trey Turner, but I am a tad bit polished on the history of the Nationals, and that's that they don't know how to make a baseball team. So,
I mean, it goes in their history. The Expos were a thing, so
yeah, that is true.
Poor Montreal. They get the best team in baseball, and then players are like, "Nah, bitch, strike."
All right. Yep. So, as we were trying to kind of talking about earlier, but for a few seconds, there have been some incredible incredible speculations that we should just change the game of baseball real quick. So, there have been a few, most notably from Carl Ravitch of ESPN, which these two may be the dumbest things I've ever heard. Okay. Well, Carl Ravitch didn't suggest one of them, but he did suggest 2 dumb ones that are probably 2 of the top 3 of the dumbest that I've heard. So, the 2 that Carl Ravitch said he would propose and is committed to is, he said, quote, "I would actually propose 2 halves, 2 81-game seasons, or even 2 75-game seasons, with an added round of playoffs." Okay, and then his other one is, "I am committed," I quote, "I am committed to the belief that the greatest game in the world would be better in 7 innings. The greatest game in the world." So.
Oh, no.
And then just before we start freaking out, the third one, which he didn't propose, I would presume, but it has been swirling, and I believe they even made it a rule in the minors, or at least in some minor league.
If it's what
somewhere.
I think you're talking about, yeah, they in like the really low minor leagues, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, what the rule is that in extra innings, you start with a runner on second base to try to shorten the length of games that go into extra innings. So, yeah, okay, so we'll start at the beginning here. Two halves, two 81 game seasons, or even two 75 game seasons with an added round of playoffs. What do you think?
I'm like hyperventilating. What in the? I didn't even read that. I know you told me to go find the 7 inning thing one, but I didn't see the two halves thing. But this isn't the 1981 season where they had to do that bullshit for the strike. No, you don't do that. That's not what baseball is. That's no, just don't do that. That's so stupid. What? So would they have like a first half champion and then a second half champion?
I would presume, yeah, and then the two would play against each other or something.
Oh,
I don't know.
Jesus
And
Christ.
I guess like if the first half champion won the second half championship, then they're just I don't know how that would work, because if you get the same champion in both halves, then you wouldn't have to have a championship game. But if you didn't, then you would, and there's just like it's
That would mess up so
the
like
game. People already complain that baseball goes too far into football and basketball and NHL in the NHL season, and because it ends in the beginning of November. If you make it to where there's two halves and there's two rounds of playoffs instead of just one at the end, that's gonna make it go into December unless you start it in freaking March.
no matter what, you're dealing with probably snow during baseball games. So how
Yes.
there's no like unless you want to make every single baseball stadium into a dome like Toronto has, that's not gonna freaking work. Or like Tampa Bay has. Like no, I can't see any way where anyone in upper management of baseball is like, yeah, that sounds like a fantastic idea. Get to work on that, Mr. Karl Ravitch. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I don't think MLB will be hiring him anytime soon. So,
Yeah, I would be very concerned if they did.
So the second one, he is committed to the belief that the greatest game in the world will be better in 7 innings.
I need to like not hyperventilate again.
That's definitely the worst of. I don't know what's worse, that or the runner starting at second. I would think this one is a lot worse.
Yeah, I would probably say this one's worse just because like
It
it's actively
drastically
shortening
changes-
games.
It drastically changes the game. Yeah, that's probably about like an hour, maybe more of game time.
Well, and I said this to you before we started recording. I said, for these people who claim to love baseball and are such great baseball fans, they really want to shorten the hell out of baseball games.
They do. It makes no sense. Like Karl Ravitch makes a living off. Well, he does other stuff, but he's on Baseball Tonight. He covers games. He's generally not in the booth calling games. That's kind of other guys, but he is on Baseball Tonight with all these guys, Doug Glanville and the likes, and he makes a living off of
Baseball. Like, he
Baseball.
literally makes a living off of baseball.
and he
wants
wants
to
shorten it.
Like, you're giving yourself a pay cut.
Yeah, he's literally giving the thing. And there's a guy that made a point. He said, "Your point is invalidated just by the most recent game. If only 7 innings, Cubs win the World Series 6-3 after a scoreless 7th."
Exactly. Like, that's... No more even needs to be said about it. That's the perfect point. Without that, Roger Davis doesn't hit the home run.
Exactly. Like, you don't get this wild ending to the greatest one of the greatest World Series we've seen. Obviously, you had the Cubs come back from 3-1 down in the series.
Who knows if that happens if every game is only 7 innings?
Exactly, and just the ring to it. It's just like 2 outs, bottom of the 7th. Like, that doesn't even sound, and that doesn't sound like the moment. Like 2 outs, bottom of the 9th. Like, that sets the scene.
Ken Burns' baseball documentary would have to be changed because he has the ninth inning there, and they're the top of the ninth, the bottom of the ninth, the 10th, and it's like, well, there's none of that. 10th
Yeah, and
inning
then
is a long shot at this point.
yeah, it really is. And then, speaking of the 10th inning, that would begin the other proposed rule that, starting in the 10th inning, you would have a runner start on second base. No, there wouldn't be like any outs. There would be no outs. There wouldn't like be like a weird count or whatever, because people are saying, oh well, if you're gonna shorten games, then why don't you start with a 1-1 count in extras or whatever. But yeah, so you would start with a runner on second base in extra innings. So personally, I hate it. It's just terrible. I think you'd have to be mentally insane or very lacking of knowledge in the area of baseball to even think of this suggestion. And yeah, it's just dumb.
Yeah, I'm gonna quote a thing I heard on the Steve Dangle podcast. They talked about this. All it's gonna do is just make for higher scoring extra inning games. Because so what? You put an you put a leadoff man at second. Because what, they would do that for both halves of the inning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're just giving each team the same chance to score, which means all they need is a single with no outs and a runner at second, or a bunt and then a sac fly. All you're just gonna have is a bunch of games going. You're gonna still have games going long because it's the same situation. All they need is one. There's a single to knock in the guy. So who cares? Like it makes no sense.
Yeah, it's basically if you think about it in like theoretically, it's the exact same situation as if you didn't put the runner there, because both teams are given the same playing field to use and to play with. And
it doesn't give an advantage to like anyone.
Yeah, it doesn't give an advantage to anybody. All it would do is just allow teams to score easier in extra innings, which might turn into shorter games and might not make it to where you get a 19-inning extra inning game every once in a while. But who cares if you get a 19-inning game every once in a while? Those are fun games to watch. Those are fun games to listen to and hear about.
To use the Phillies as an example, we won, like, Wilson Valdez. One of the greatest memories of the 2011 season was Wilson Valdez getting a win.
Yeah.
It was because of a 19-inning game. Look, I get that they want to slow down. Not slow down. They want to speed up the game. And I completely understand. Baseball games do take a long time, and sometimes they're obnoxiously long. Especially if you watch the Boston Red Sox New York Yankees game in the past 10 years, basically.
Yeah.
But just they've done a decent amount of work with just kind of telling batters and pitchers to quit the bullshit and just tell them to throw the pitches, get in the batter's boxes, quit dicking around, and just kind of making the game last forever because you want to adjust your gloves for the 30th time in the past 20 seconds. You don't need to put runners at second to speed up the game because you're just messing with the game of baseball. That's not how it's played. You don't get free runners because you did nothing to earn it. Like, it just makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah, and to your point, how you're saying that, that you were saying about, like, it's not baseball. Like, it literally is not baseball. You can say that, you can implement a rule that would say, okay, you either have to keep 1 foot in the batter's box at all time, or you have to stay on the mound at all times, or put a timer in between pitches, or put a timer for how long you could be out of the batter's box. Those I wouldn't be opposed to. Something very minor that would not have an effect on the actual game itself, but just something like a cosmetic change. And those would be so much better for the game because it would speed it up. But personally, I don't really see a problem with the game right now. Obviously, you have to be a pretty good fan of baseball, a pretty big fan of baseball, to watch a full 9-inning game, no interruptions. I'm a big enough fan that I could do that, no problem, night in, night out. I could watch 9 innings for months and months on end. Toward the end of the season, it might get a little bit tiring, but many fans love baseball because they don't have to pay attention to it for 9 innings. And they could just have it on in the background while they cook, while they clean, while they play with their kids, while they're playing with their dog, whatever. And that's why many people are fans of baseball. And I just don't see why you would change the game drastically when you can implement small rules. I wouldn't say 100% go ahead, implement those rules. I'm just saying I wouldn't be totally against them. But just implement these small little rules that will speed up the game, and you have a quicker game.
Exactly. And again, like you said, one of the main reasons why people love baseball is it's the only sport to not have a clock. Every other sport, it's timed. There's
Quarters.
And obviously, like, I mean, if you want to say, like, well, innings are technically timed, like, okay, sure,
Not
fine,
really.
whatever, but they can
There's
go
no
on forever.
actual time. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no, like, physical time limit.
There's not,
you can go on for an hour, and then you can go on for 5 minutes.
There's not, like, a first inning and then, like, 5 minutes right next to it. No, you play until you get 3 outs. That's what baseball is. Which, and again, you want to put in those rules where you make pitchers stay on the mound, have us, like, batters have to stay in the batter's box or keep 1 foot in, whatever. No one's really going to notice those things. It's just going to speed up the process, and you're not going to see more.
The camera will hide them.
Yeah, and you're not going to see more just dramatic pauses where the pitcher needs to, like, stare out into the crowd for, like, a good 10 seconds, just, daydreaming about pizza or something. Like, it's
You'll
not
notice
gonna.
a runner on second at starting extra inning.
Yeah.
You'll notice when there's no 8 on the scoreboard for an 8th inning.
You're like an older baseball fan is going to look at that and be like, "That is the
Dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life.
They're going to say, "Not my baseball."
They could. They could definitely. So we've seen a lot of hashtag not my's
Yeah.
recently. Like, why not just start up a not my baseball one?
I think we have to if those type of rules start to get in there. Granted, I don't think that it's actually going to happen because, let's be real, there's already been enough outrage about it. They're not going to get far with the runner on second thing, and they're not going to get anywhere with the 7 inning thing, despite Carl Ravitch hopes there. And yeah, baseball's going to... I would assume that Rob Manfred has the mental ability to just kind of say, okay, yeah, that was a really stupid opinion, I'm sorry. This is why we test things out in the minors.
Yeah. That's what I love about baseball, because they have the ability to do that. Like, you see the NFL, whenever they pretty much implement a rule change, it's implemented on the spot. NBA, same thing. NHL, generally, same thing. Well, NHL, you could definitely test it out in the minors, but you don't really hear about it as much as you do baseball. And that's what I love about baseball, that you could test stuff out in the minors. But back to, like, the main argument. Yeah, it's just Rob Manfred. There's a reason Rob Manfred is the commissioner of baseball, and that is that Rob Manfred didn't make these suggestions. And even though, commissioners, they'll always get hate, but if Rob Manfred were to implement any of these rules or sign off on any of these rules that would shorten the game, put a runner on second, whatever, he would be the next. I would not put him at the level of Roger Goodell. Somehow, that's just how much he's hated. But I would put him up there, very close.
Yeah, he would be right up there with, like, Gary Bettman. I think, like, Adam Silver is the only, like, not hated commissioner
Yeah,
at
Adam
this point.
Silver's. Yeah,
he's
Adam
a boss.
Silver's. Yeah,
I mean, granted, he hates the Sixers tanking, but we'll forgive him.
Who cares?
Just keep being a hater. You can hand us our, like, 5 NBA championships and make it apologize then. So
yeah, and like our see the Sixers, just to kind of touch on them again. Like, the Sixers are going to be in a perfect timing because we're going to be hitting our prime as soon as, like, LeBron starts assuming LeBron isn't, like, a physical freak when he's 45 years old.
he might be Yager.
There is a possibility, but like, LeBron will be on his downside. But yeah, okay, so yeah, you kind of heard us rant there on the baseball crap that people have been suggesting. So to finish off today, um, we'll be touching a little bit on the Super Bowl. We weren't really sure if we were going to talk about it, but we decided to. So I watched it the whole time. Commercials were trash.
It was the worst year for commercials.
Yeah, it
That
was
was so
god
bad.
awful. There was like a few good ones, like the Buick one with Cam Newton and
Yeah, I like that one. That was good.
a few other ones, but other than those, like there wasn't really any good ones. But
The Timberlake one was nice.
yeah, it was. It was. That one was pretty good. Then obviously the '84 Lumber one was pretty controversial.
Oh, I didn't see that. Wait,
You
what?
didn't see that one? Yeah,
No.
there was like the '84 Lumber. They made a commercial with pretty much like illegal immigrants, not actual legal immigrants, but like immigrants coming here legally. Kind of as, I don't know if it was a political statement. It definitely was a political statement. You can't really validate that it was, but you had to like go to their website to kind of watch the rest. It's one of those. But it was very controversial because a lot of people watch football to, and just sports in general, to get away from politics in the world that we live. And so them kind of using illegal immigration as like a, I don't know, to associate their brand with illegal immigration. Questionable to me, but I get why they did it.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of companies that had not so hidden messages in their commercials.
There was a lot, but I must give it to a lot of companies that did have them, that they had like subliminal messages that you really didn't notice them while you were watching, but then kind of as you kind of reflected on what you just saw, it was like, okay, that, there's like a diverse family or like a diverse community doing whatever they had them doing, and that kind of in and of itself made a statement.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people complain about it, and I get why. Like, sports have always been a diversion from the real world and kind of the politics life and the life around us, what's going on in the U.S. and just all around the world. But I think obviously we're in weird times right now, and they're within their rights to kind of use whatever messaging they want. I mean, I'm
They
sure
did pay
if
the money.
yeah, it's all about the money for commercials anyways. And what you saw it for, like, it made you mad for what, like 20 seconds of your day. It's fine. Just who cares? The Super Bowl at the very end distracted you enough from it anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah, so the game, because that, there was a game too. It was the best game I have ever seen in my life, football game. It didn't turn out how I wanted, as I'm sure it did with you.
to say the least.
Who doesn't hate the Patriots besides Patriots fans? Or, excuse me, who doesn't hate the Patriots? So, the game, that was the craziest game I've ever seen. Personally, I saw Peyton Manning as the best quarterback of all time. But Brady, I had him with Joe Montana at 2-3. He moved ahead of him for me 100%. He's in second now for me, and he's very close to Peyton Manning. But when I kind of judge a quarterback, I do more than his on field, and I feel like Peyton Manning just had that charisma, that swagger, that locker room presence about him that nobody will ever be able to match, not even Tom Brady. And Tom Brady has a very good presence, but just Peyton Manning has had the locker room presence. But yeah, Tom Brady, amazing performance. You have to give it to him. The Falcons, obviously very questionable play calling on offense at the end of the game for the last quarter of the game. Very, very questionable play calling, but their defense just kind of cracked under the pressure, and Tom Brady just capitalized on every single opportunity that he was given.
He completed like every single pass at the end of that game. I don't even think he threw an incompletion for the last like 20 passes that he attempted. At least that's what it seemed like. The guys were wide open at like all the time. Falcons just, there was a certain point I think for everyone in the game where you could tell like, yeah, this is over. The Patriots are winning. and it didn't matter what the score was. You just kind of looked at it like, yeah, this is over. And I had that exact feeling when I was watching near the end of the game. I'm like, I know the Falcons are winning, and I know there's not that much time left, but this game is over because Tom Brady is just gonna complete every single pass. Guys gonna be wide open, and it's the Patriots. That this is what their legacy is: being able to complete these ridiculous comebacks despite all the odds. Doesn't matter what game it is, they somehow find a way to get it done. And it was, for me, in terms of like greatest quarterback of all time, I'm gonna kind of throw a weird one out. Probably not one that a lot of people think of, at least not many younger fans. Johnny Unitas for me is probably the number one, just because the era that he did everything. You have to think back then, like no quarterback had like what QBs now have, where they have the sleeve that has all the plays on it. Unitas would just come up and just say, "Yeah, do this," and he would make everything work. So at least that's why I put him as number one. But yeah, Brady is at the very least, yeah, at very least like number two, and he's probably number one. But yeah, as much as I hate him, and as much as I wish his career would just be over so I could not have to deal with him anymore, he's an all-world talent, and it's amazing the story of the Patriots with their starting quarterback being injured is the reason that they are on this, that they had this all the success.
Yeah, like I thought I was. The weird thing is, I was thinking about this the other day before the Super Bowl. Like, imagine if Drew Bledsoe never got injured that time.
I
You
said
never
the
know.
exact same thing during the game to my girlfriend. I'm like,
You never
what if
know.
he never got hurt?
Like, you just got to think. Like, Drew Bledsoe never gets injured. Tom Brady may never get to play as a Patriot. He might get traded. He might sign somewhere as a free agent without the weapons that he had with New England. And you never know. He could play in a system that was largely against him and wasn't, fitting to how he likes to play. And that in and of itself is crazy to think about. That one injury just sparked the career of almost a lot of people, like many people's number one, a lot of people's number two, including myself and you. And yeah, it's crazy to think about.
And it's not even like one injury defined a whole career, a whole team's kind of a performance over the past, what is it now, 16 years. It defined the NFL, because when you think about the NFL, the first name you kind of think about is Tom Brady now. I know there was Peyton, of course, but during the Patriots dynasty there where they won, 3 and 4 years, you thought, when you heard NFL, you thought Tom Brady. And he's been, again, Peyton obviously is more of a well-liked quarterback than Brady is, because it's Brady. He plays for, he
plays for the villains of the NFL.
Yeah, it's the New York Yankees team, and he plays for the evil empire. That's,
yeah.
And for all the credit that we give Brady, and he does deserve all the credit, yeah, Belichick is the greatest coach of all time, and that's not debatable anymore.
Without a doubt, no. It's not debatable. Like, that's like when you hear so many people. I've heard so many people over the last week say that you cannot debate that Belichick is the greatest the greatest coach of all time. And when you hear, I could see if you heard that from maybe a handful of people, but when you hear it from analyst after analyst after analyst after analyst, and you hear it from different platforms, different networks, different websites, you know it. Like, this guy is mentally, and he's a mental genius. He's a football genius, and there's no debate. Like, the guy is. I wish he would just leave already. Like Tom Brady, like you said with Tom Brady. I wish he would just leave because he's too damn good.
It's not fair. Like,
yeah,
how have the Patriots not won more Super Bowls? Like, that's what I'm confused about.
The thing is, like, Tom Brady right now is probably playing at a level higher than he has ever played, and Bill Belichick is coaching at a higher level than he's ever coached. And when you think about that, it is unbelievable because they're both Tom Brady's 39, I believe, 38 maybe. Belichick, he's up there. I think he's 60 or high 50s at least. And like these guys, they're older. They're literally still hitting their prime, or at least performing like they're in their prime, and it's just completely mind blowing, mind boggling, and it's just unbelievable.
Bill Belichick is 64 years old.
64.
Damn. I mean, I knew he was old, but I didn't think it was...
64,
Yeah, and that's the thing. These guys are on, like, the back end of their career. Brady is... Yeah, he's 39. Belichick's 64. They're not going to be in the NFL for that much longer, thank fucking God. But... How are they doing this? Like... Again, I'm going to... like I said before, where everyone seemed to be wide open in the last few minutes of that game. That's mostly play calling. Like, the Patriots receivers... Look, you can say Julian Edelman is good, Danny Amendola, Chris Hogan, but come on, they're product of the system. The Patriots have been doing this for years with guys like Deion Branch and Troy Brown even. They are products of Bill Belichick's system. That's the reason why they're good, and that's why they're always open. He somehow finds a way to just get them open each time. I don't know how he does it, because it's not like they're really that complicated routes or anything. He just somehow finds a way to make sure his receivers always get open for Brady. And obviously, again, it's to still give Brady credit. He makes some amazing throws, and he deserves all the accolades he gets. But when they're that wide open, it's fairly easy to kind of just do what he does.
Yeah, and especially when he's that good at doing what he does. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and just Belichick being, as we said, the best coach of all time, pretty much undoubtedly at this point. Yeah. And Brady being on the cusp of being the greatest quarterback of all time. If he wins one more Super Bowl, he's on top for me, without a doubt. Yeah. As much as I hate to say it, he's on top. Because I just, personally, if he doesn't win another one, I would keep Peyton Manning above him. But Tom Brady he's a generational talent. And the craziest thing is that we talk about generational talents a lot of the time only in baseball. But in football, generational talents, you never see generational talents coming around as often as we see them right now. Like, you see Tom Brady, obviously Peyton Manning just retired. Drew Brees is still playing on an incredible level. Ben Roethlisberger, very good quarterback. And then, like, obviously you have wide receivers, running backs, all these playmakers. The state of the NFL is very good right now, even with some of these older guys on their way out. And I forgot about Aaron Rodgers somehow. Aaron Rodgers is amazing. He, in my opinion, and I've said this many times to many people, that in my opinion, by the end of Aaron Rodgers' career, I believe that he will be the greatest quarterback of all time. I just feel like he has something's about him, and something with his just ability and his presence that just, I don't know, it just affects me in a way that it just makes me think that he's going to be the greatest.
High level emotional connection here with Aaron Rodgers for Jared. But yeah, I would also have to say I agree with that, just because, and I'm going to take into consideration the fact that Rodgers has basically no help offensively. He has no running back. He has, like, okay, Jordy Nelson is a great receiver. I'm not going to take anything away from him. But that's the best one that Rodgers has had his whole career. Other than that, he's had, Greg Jennings, Randall Cobb. Like, these aren't bad receivers, but he hasn't had Mike McCarthy as a coach is not. Yeah, exactly. And, like, Mike McCarthy's not a great... he's not a great coach. And he's had... And I'm pretty sure he's had him his whole career.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So he hasn't had kind of the luxury that Brady has had. And again, I'm not trying to take anything away from Brady, but Rodgers has had it, I'm going to say, harder in his first few years in the NFL, and he still has a long career ahead of him, and he, without a doubt, I think could very well be the greatest quarterback of all time when he does retire.
Yeah, that's definitely not a stretch at all. It's not a reality yet. Personally, he's in my top probably about 7 or so, but that's for a different time. That's for a different discussion, and that's for a different debate. Because we all know that everybody has different top 5s, top 10s, top whatevers in football, because football is tough to grade without bias, but we all try to do it, and
Yeah, football
so,
football is weird to rank because each fan base is so like really dedicated to their team. Like, I know fans in other sports are really dedicated, but football is a different breed of dedication when it comes to their team. Like, I mean, look at the Eagles. We somehow still put up with that garbage, but uh,
yeah.
I want to make a point about the game in general, and I realized this from like the first play of the game. If every NFL game was played like the Super Bowl, if every game was officiated like the Super Bowl was, I would actually care about the NFL. I would want to watch every single game other than the Eagles. But that's not the way it is. Super Bowl, they barely called anything, and when they made a flag, or when they threw the flag, there was clear evidence that there was clear evidence that supported them throwing it. All those holding calls on the Falcons, I think only one of them was really like ticky tack call, but it still made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Regular season though, it's freaking garbage. Like I can't how do these referees just go, oh well, it's Super Bowl, so we have to put on our best show and everything, but in the regular season we can just let touching someone on the head, like patting them like a freaking dog, is a penalty.
Be like an unsportsmanlike conduct, yeah.
Yeah, like how many times did Fletcher Cox get that this year for just accidentally hitting a guy in the head?
He got a lot. Yeah, he had to get at least half a dozen, probably more.
And granted, like you can make the argument, well, he's got to be more disciplined. Sure, but the NFL needs to grow up sometimes with these penalties. Like, just I know the player safety is important, but Jesus Christ, you're going a little bit too far.
Yeah, like you said, player safety obviously very, very important. Like we're seeing what's going on now. It's still going on with all these players coming at the NFL, former players, with this ginormous lawsuit because of all their problems now. But and the NFL doesn't want that. Obviously, the players don't want to have to do that just because they'd rather be healthy. But yeah, like these ticky-tacky calls in the regular season, and then for them to just be completely brushed aside in the Super Bowl, especially in the playoffs in general, it kind of sucks because the refs know that, oh, if I screw up here, I'm gonna get national attention. Whereas if you just do it in like a subtle Eagles Giants game or whatever, like the Northeast might hate me for a few weeks, but then it'll be over.
Yeah, I think that's really all it comes down to, is the fact that you mess up on the national stage, you have people all around the world hating you, including the people that got screwed over, like the fans of the team that got screwed over. So I made this kind of realization, and I know John, who made the same thing. Like, I think I'm just more of an Eagles fan than I am an NFL fan, because football in general has just become such a piss poor product over the past few years. And if I wasn't so desperate to see the Eagles win a Super Bowl, I would just probably not watch football altogether.
Yeah, I'd definitely be with you there. It's just ever since, and coming from me, I'm usually like I'm a big Eagles fan, but I'm not one of those like crazy biased Eagles fans that like you see sometimes, that say like, oh well, I don't like this game, I don't like the NFL because my team sucks or whatever. But I don't like the NFL as much as I do, or as much as I did, and even back when the Eagles were a team of division title, maybe championship. No, I wouldn't say Super Bowl title contenders, but possibly like NFC title contenders. When they had that good of talent, I didn't even like it then, because the game has just become more of a, I don't even know, a drama show than it has become an actual game. And it's just I don't know, each growing year just makes me not want to watch it more and more, but I do watch it anyway just because it's the NFL. And the Eagles, I love them a lot, and it's just I want to watch them, and I want to watch them play well, but they suck. So it's just that is partially what drives me away. The Eagles not doing well, but in the bigger picture, it's just that the game has become just like a joke in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and people want to talk about how baseball takes forever. Football takes way longer, honestly. Like with the amount of commercials that they put in, like, oh, they kicked off the ball. Well, 30 seconds of commercials. Oh, there's an injury. Another 30 seconds of commercials. Like, we get it. You love money. You can stop. Like, just focus on the quality of play because it's garbage. Again, it's you might as well just go to flag football with the amount of, oh, high hit, even though he hit him in the shoulder. It's like, what are you supposed to do? What have we? Where are you supposed to tackle then? It's
Yeah, you don't want to go at their leg because then you get retaliations and people
yeah.
like, oh, why'd you hit me in the leg? And then you get hit in the chest and the shoulders. It's like, oh, why'd you hit me high?
It's ridiculous, and the NFL needs to like. It's football. It's a tackle sport. It's a physical sport. I get that you need to make sure players are safe, and you need to make sure that people aren't getting hit up high and getting concussions all the time. But here's a simple way to fix that without having to put in like 50 rules to make sure players don't do that. Make the helmets not like bricks, because that's the main reason why. Because the helmets are ridiculously padded and like just bulky. So if someone hits you with their helmet, you basically have a concussion on impact. And teach players how to tackle. Tell them, hey, you just make them watch like old film of like 70s football players. And were there any high hits then? Sure, maybe some, but most players back then actually knew how to tackle and how to actually wrap a player up. Like, one of the greatest hits in NFL history is Chuck Bednarik on, I forget who the Giants player was, but there was that iconic picture of him just standing over him with pumping his fist. And that wasn't a dirty hit. It was just a clean football hit.
Yeah, and like you said, there's simple stuff they could do, and where you don't have to implement 50 rules to say, oh, you can't hit a player here or there. If you do, here's what's gonna happen. Because that is just a lot of unnecessary implementation that the NFL doesn't have to or want to do. Like, let's be real. Like, they don't want to have to limit
of course
the way
not.
that all these players play. It's just what they do. It's just what they don't want to do. Excuse me. But yeah, the game has just become something that 50 years ago, for even probably less, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, nobody would have ever thought that this game of football would be this ticky-tacky anymore.
Oh yeah, definitely not. If you ask someone back in like the 80s or even the 90s that, and you showed them like a game from today, and they'd be like, "That's not football. What is that? That's that's not played in America, right?" And yeah, and this is why we don't talk. This is why we don't talk football on this show, because it's just gonna be us ranting about how much the game sucks. So
yeah, it's not good at this point. I just, and like I said, I'm not saying that just because the Eagles haven't performed well the last few seasons. It's just I genuinely don't find a ton of interest in a game where the players have trained their whole lives pretty much for this game, and they have put in countless hours in the gym. And because let's be real, football players are pretty much at peak physical condition out of all sports. Like, if you were to say that there were, obviously there's freak athletes in basketball and hockey and baseball, but then football is basically all the quote-unquote freak athletes from all those sports, plus the freak athletes of their own. And it's just like, you're taking away their ability that they have trained for their entire lives by like implementing all these rules and repercussions, and I just don't find that a lot of interest in the game much anymore.
yeah, and one of the main things I've noticed with football is, and this was prevalent in Eagles game this year. It was in the Ravens game. The running back was coming right towards the end zone, and I've noticed this a lot. Players on the defensive side will just back up instead of actually going at the player to tackle. And Rodney McLeod did this, and he was basically just backing up further into the end zone. And by the time he realized, oh shit, I gotta go tackle this guy, he was already in the end zone. And that's the problem with football. There's this, like, players are scared to tackle. They don't know what to do because they feel like, okay, I have to like plan this out so I don't get a penalty for it. And that's where a lot of the problems that come in with how the NFL has been played lately, and why I might have to start looking at watching a CFL game, see about the product over there.
Yeah, those guys like. Well, the CFL ain't bad, but the Arena Football League, they like fly over the damn walls half the time, don't they? Yeah.
Arena football's fun. Like, it's obviously ridiculously high scoring and probably a little bit too high scoring, but that's what it's meant to be. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. They don't pretend like there's defense like the NFL does. They pretend like defense is still a thing.
Yeah. All right. So, as long as you don't have anything else to talk about.
Yeah, I think we've ranted enough about everything.
Yeah, we just broke the 2-hour mark, so that's a thing. And yeah, so.
I think I need a nap after this.
Yeah, so if you guys made it here to the end, well, A, thank you. B, you have too much time on your hands. To listen to us two, like, who wants to do that? But yeah, so.
So much self-promo.
Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been the 4th episode of the Draft Podcast. I am Jared Paolo, along with Kyle Fry, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Take it easy.
Peace.